This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with a daily wrestling news update. Quick comment, a few people have mentioned in the video of Kenny Bolin, Jim Cornette's old friend and a manager for OVW, talking about the clip where Jim Cornette, Bolin says that he said the N word like 16 times in this rant. I don't know how many times it was, but a few fans had commented that no such clip exists. It's out there. It's not that hard to find. I think it came out in 2019. So yes, it is real. But let me jump into the Wrestling Observer review. Apparently, WWE has hired JP Morgan, which is a U.S. bank. I'd never heard of it till now since I'm in Canada. But they're apparently going to help advise on a potential sale of the WWE. Apparently, if a deal occurs, it's going to occur in the next 3 to 6 months before the discussions of the new TV deals come out, because the TV rights deals are going to beginning negotiations at the end of this year, I guess, around the fall of this year. Of course, this all has to do with Vince McMahon returning because he's the majority shareholder, and now he's back with the board of directors, and Vince has to approve any sale. And the other reason he's returning is he likely wants to negotiate a deal where he'll still be involved with the company if there is a sale. And as was reported on this channel a long time ago, Saudi Arabia could be one of the main potential buyers. They're extremely rich. And the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund already owns brands like the Newcastle United football team. And they're already spending like $40 million a show for WWE to come to Saudi Arabia once a year. And with their stance on women's rights, even with these settlements coming out about Vince McMahon, I highly doubt they would care about having someone like Vince McMahon still being a part of the company. Of course, NBC Universal, who are already paying hundreds of millions a year for WWE's programming, for SmackDown and Peacock and other things, they might want to buy it too, because within about 8 years or so, it would pay for itself if they continue to pay the amount that they're paying to WWE. Apparently, Endeavor, the parent company of the UFC, could also be interested as well. So there's many potential buyers, but yeah, if someone like Saudi Arabia buys it, it may no longer even be a public company, which would be another reason why a guy like Vince McMahon running it would be all right. Because one of the reasons that they added him was because it was a public company. Of course, if it was still a private company owned by McMahon, he would have probably kept himself the owner. Apparently, he's been positioning to get himself back officially within the company for a while now, and the board members knew about it, but several of the board members didn't want him back. So since Vince McMahon still owns the company, he just replaced those board members. Because that's what happens when you're the owner of the company. You're not out when you're still the owner. I don't know how anyone actually thought that. Apparently, Cody Rhodes is on the official Royal Rumble poster. It's not looking like that much of an exciting Royal Rumble, to be honest. There's only been 2 matches so far. Bray Wyatt versus LA Knight. I wonder who's going to win that match. And the other is Kevin Owens against Roman Reigns, which everybody knows Roman Reigns is going to win that match. Roman Reigns never loses, and he's supposed to face either Cody Rhodes or The Rock at WrestleMania. So it's not even like a small doubt that Roman Reigns will win that. because Kevin Owens does a lot of jobs. Like he recently just did a whole run of jobs to Austin Theory, who's lower on the totem pole than Roman Reigns. Money in the Bank this year is going to take place July 1st in London at the O2 Arena. Surprisingly, they're not going to a bigger stadium because with their recent sellout in Cardiff, you would think they would go to a bigger stadium than the O2 Arena, which is just an arena and sells out for TV shows. So that one will probably be an instant sellout. Apparently, Trinity Fatu is in talks of coming back to WWE, but nothing has been signed yet. AJ Styles broke his ankle at the December 29th house show in Hershey, Pennsylvania. He'll be out for a while. Bray Wyatt suffered a broken finger to his left hand. The December 29th match with Jinder Mahal in Miami, Florida. Apparently, Dave Meltzer reported last week that Dragon Lee would be the highest paid wrestler in NXT. Apparently, it is Apollo Crews. I mean, I guess Dragon Lee's going to be the highest paid wrestler in NXT because he's making over $250,000. I'll be honest, I never even heard of Dragon Lee until the news came out he was signed last week. I guess he's a Mexican luchador-style wrestler. The story, about John Cena appearing in SmackDown. Last week, it was by far the highest viewed WWE TV show, 2021. Did a 0.64 rating, which was better than the original Fast National rating that came out, and had 2,631,000 viewers, which is much better than they usually do. And the show in Tampa was sold out with over 13,000 fans in attendance. So obviously John Cena is a bigger draw still than anyone on their roster. I guess it had 13,850 fans paid and 15,738 fans in attendance, including comps, which is a lot better for anyone that watches these normally and listens to the attendance. Dynamite last week did a 0.26 rating, or this week rather, and it was from Seattle with a good crowd, 8,400 paid. NXT did a 0.16 rating. Rampage, even with Sting on the show, just did a 0.12 rating. Raw did a 0.41 rating. Impact did a 0.01 rating, which is typical for Impact, about the lowest rating you can get. And it's interesting that people say Vince Russo booking was the worst ever when it wasn't doing 0.01s when he was booking. It was doing 1 point something, 1.2, 1.3. Women of Wrestling, which doesn't get enough credit, did a 0.03 rating. Women of Wrestling always beats Impact's rating, but I don't find hardly anyone reports on Women of Wrestling, but we hear so much about Impact, who, by the way, on their upcoming pay-per-view has a guy in his 70s wrestling. That's how they're trying to create excitement. We have a guy that's 73 years old wrestling on our next pay-per-view. You better tune in. Teal Piper did a job match on Dark that was taped yesterday. Apparently, Tay Mello and Anna Jay defeated Teal Piper and Kel. Don West, longtime TNA Impact pitchman, passed away of brain cancer at 59 this week. Sorry to report on that. I've never really watched much of Impact. I've never been a fan. But I know we had a long battle with that, and I'm really sorry to hear about that. Apparently, the Federal Trade Commission is proposing a new rule to ban no-compete clauses in contracts. Could affect WWE from not allowing wrestlers to compete for 3 months after they fire them for AEW. But the other thing they could do is just suspend them for 3 months, then fire them if they don't want people to jump. So it won't really, in the long run, affect much. Shinsei Nakamura versus the Great Muta as part of the Great Muta's retirement tour gave Pro Wrestling Noah their biggest crowd since 2013, since May of 2013, 9,500 fans at Budokan Hall in Japan. Nick Aldis apparently has been a free agent now, but hasn't been picked up anywhere. He wasn't a very good draw as NWA champion. Cain Velasquez is going to be wrestling on a charity event in North Carolina. Apparently upcoming. His next hearing is March the 8th, where his trial date will be given. Bobby Fulton had booked John Laurinaitis for an autograph session at a show, but didn't like the feedback he got and unbooked them. In the UFC news, there's a lot of MMA news this week. Phil Baroni, who did an interview on this channel about a month or so ago with the King of Connecticut and Jack Kilby on the Old School Shooters podcast. And he seemed a little drunk or on something in the interview, I have to admit. He's a former UFC Pride star, had a couple pro wrestling matches for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which you don't hear much about these days. But apparently he was charged with the murder of his girlfriend in San Pancho, Mexico, a couple days ago. Baroni, 46, is the one that went to police officers saying that his girlfriend was unconscious in a hotel room where they found the woman lying down with no clothes on, covered by a sheet. She had multiple marks and bruises on her face and other parts of her body. Baroni had bruises on his fists. The woman was found dead. Apparently, the story that Baroni said was around 3 p.m. They had been smoking marijuana and drinking beer in his room. He and his girlfriend started arguing because apparently she had cheated on him. He said he threw her into the shower where she hit her head and fell to the floor. She was trying to get up but couldn't, so he took off her clothes, which seems to me is strange, and put her in the bed and put a sheet over her. And while they were lying there, she asked him to get cigarettes and beer. So he left to get cigarettes and beer. That's a good way to treat any injury. Anyways, apparently when he went back to the room, she was unresponsive. He thought she was just asleep, but when he tried to wake her up, she wouldn't wake up. That's when he went to get help, and he was then arrested for homicide and put in jail at the Municipal Administrative Court in Valle de Banderas in San Pancho, Mexico. An autopsy is being performed to find the cause of death. I can only imagine what Mexican prisons must be like. Really, really shitty story to hear. Baroni did pretty well early in his career, but Meltzer brings up as he got older and his reflexes slowed down, he took a lot of beatings. He started wrestling in 2014, but his career never really went anywhere. He didn't like wrestling, as he said in that last interview. Baroni most recently lost a bare knuckle fight to Chris Lieben in 2018 that apparently he wasn't paid for. And many people think that fight was fixed because, well, many people think he took a dive in that fight. Dana White and his wife of 26 years, Ann, got into a drunken physical altercation New Year's Eve while they were drinking and partying in Cabo San Lucas. White, his wife, and 3 kids were on vacation there, according to the Observer here. White and his wife had been drinking heavily in the VIP section of a club, and a phone video was taken of this incident that was given to TMZ. They actually captured this on tape. Basically, Dana White was seen grabbing the left hand of his wife, where she slapped him in the face with his right hand. He then slapped her back, and then apparently she slapped him again, and it was broken up. The incident only lasted a few seconds. White appeared with TMZ, apologizing for the situation, and said that he had been drinking a lot. And this has caused the Power Slap League that he was supposed to be hosting, that was supposed to air on the Turner Network or Warner Brothers networks starting next week. Apparently has been delayed a week. Might not even be on now because Dana White is the star of that show and host. And with this slapping stuff, it might look too bad. And the towel might get thrown in on that show. Meltzer has brought up that it's unlikely Dana White will be taken out of his role as the face of the UFC, because UFC doesn't really have that many big stars right now. They're still selling out the arena shows, but the pay-per-views haven't been doing great. Conor McGregor and John Jones are the biggest stars in the UFC, and they're hardly fighting. So Dana White is truly the biggest star. So to take him off as the face of the company would really hurt business. Jake Paul has announced a deal with the PFL, Professional Fighters League, where he's going to be a minority owner of the organization and fighter, which is going to be apparently good for both him and the PFL, because honestly, the PFL doesn't have much steam behind it. And the pay-per-view they tried to do last year apparently didn't do that great. And even with Paul's last fight only doing between 200 and 300,000 buys, which is bad for him. That's pretty great buys for pay-per-view these days. Far more than wrestling gets. So this is going to be a multiple-year contract. No dates or opponent officially announced yet, although Paul wants to apparently fight Nate Diaz first in a boxing fight, then an MMA fight. And he wants to do this super fight division that will only be for pay-per-view draws, where the fighters are going to get 50% of the revenue. And fighters in the PFL are going to be allowed to get their own sponsorship deals, apparently, unlike you can get in the UFC. So there you go. Big news this week. I'll get into some of your questions. John says SmackDown sucked last night. James says that can't please anyone. DK, if only Shane McMahon found a way to buy WWE. I would say it's probably going to go to Saudi Arabia, if I had to bet. Someone says Hannibal, my brother. No gimmicks guy, Jack Kilby. Yes, don't forget about this. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern, the Bush, and that's Sunday night, January the 8th, both Bushwhackers, Luke and Butch, are going to be on the Great North Wrestling podcast. And John Paz did a 2022 interview with Luke and Butch, and Butch is pretty controversial when he talks. So that's going to be one to catch live at 7 p.m. They will be taking fan questions, and I understand this month there will be an announcement made about the first Great North Wrestling event under the new Jack Kilby regime. I'll still be involved with recording them and airing the shows for the Hannibal TV, but Jack will be running the company because I've lost interest in that. Sean, the puppy is at her mother's right now, and from what I understand, she's doing well. Thank you for your concern. Let's hope 2023 is a strong year for Piper. She's really tough. I can tell you this. Piper is tough. She came close to death a few times last year, and she overcame it. I'm not exaggerating that. Um, she's a tough girl. She takes after Roddy Piper for sure. Kurtz thinks Saudi Arabia is going to make a good push for the WWE purchase. They're loaded. They are loaded, and it would be good for this image reconstruction that they're trying to do. DK says Cody Rhodes will flop when he becomes champion. Someone says a company like IMG will have to buy it. Well, Saudi Arabia is rich, so is NBC Universal, so is Endeavor. Antonio, why would you be watching a Wrestling Observer review podcast if you're not interested in the discussions of ratings? Because that's the kind of stuff we talk about in these news updates. Don't click on the news updates. Wallace, AJ Styles is probably happy he gets to sit at home and get paid and be with his family. And the break from his face on TV is probably going to be good for him. Michael, I don't even know who Max Caster is, and I could care less about Jeff Jarrett. DK, Karen Jarrett keeps getting worked. Yeah, Karen Jarrett has been mad about Kurt Angle allegedly cheating on her with Kelly because, of course, Kurt Angle or Karen Jarrett famously switched from Jeff Jarrett to Kurt Angle when they were all in TNA together. Maurice, Masterpiece, Knife Hobby number 3. Vince made wrestling. I want him to come back. He made wrestling what it is today for sure. And I don't think he was ever gone. Dracor, thanks for all the great videos. Have any Ken Patera or Greg Valentine scheduled? I'm positive there'll be more Ken Patera. Sid will probably be my next interview for everyone asking about Sid. I was talking to his wife this week, and apparently he really wants to do another interview with me. Michael says a Jimmy Snuka incident with Phil Baroni. Yes, seems like it. But in the year 2023, it's not 1983 anymore, where if this was still 1983, we wouldn't have even heard about it in the U.S. and Canada, since it happened in Mexico. Maurice says I could have broken out of Billy Jack Haynes, full Nelson, no problem. You never know. He had a pretty good one. He still communicates with me. His wife is going through health issues right now. Would have been nice if AEW did something with him in Portland. If anyone's watching this from AEW, please do something with him next time you come to Portland. Whether you like me or not, that would be really nice to do for Billy Jack Haynes. Yeah, Snuka was found civilly guilty of the murder, but not criminally, which I think is the same thing that happened to OJ. Ivan, the company that owns UFC is a potential WWE buyer, yes. No, the Fertitta brothers aren't involved with the UFC, but I think they sold it for $4 billion, which WWE is worth more than that now. And they are involved with the slap fight promotion, which I'll be honest, I hate this whole slap fighter contest. First of all, it's boring. Second of all, these are people taking unprotected blows to the head. It's just pure brain damage. And like, if you have no other talent than taking slaps to the head, I don't think we should encourage people to take unprotected blows to the head. I really don't think so. With all we know about concussions now, I mean, it's comical and it's it's like a gimmick type thing, but I don't think anything like that should be a long-term thing. I have no idea if Dawn Marie slept with Kurt Angle. Culture Shock says the whole point of the sale is so Vince can sell it to someone privately so they can't force him out any longer. Bill finds the bloodline crap, especially Zayn. I'm not a fan of Zayn. He's a good manager, but as a wrestler, he doesn't do it for me. But the whole shoving the bloodline down people's throats because they're related to The Rock. Oh my god! And yeah, I do agree. Roman Reigns is the most over person in WWE, but it's just like we know he's gonna always win. It's just it's too predictable now. And I agree. There's no one from the regular roster close to as over as Roman Reigns is right now. So I understand their predicament, but it's just boring. Wallace's Impact Wrestling is just a sick joke. It's absolute crap. It is absolute crap. Ivan, yeah, Luke and Butch are legends in Puerto Rico. Yes, people keep forgetting that Vince McMahon was still the majority shareholder. They like to think that he had nothing to do with the company. He still was the majority shareholder. Yes, Piper is a shooter for sure. She definitely traumatized me a little bit last year as my best buddy. I love that little girl. Jeffrey says WWE is still terrible. And by the way, speaking of Teal Piper, who had a dark match on AEW Dark, there's I think 2 or 3 interviews with her on this channel, and she is the godmother to my dog Piper. Any updates on Sunny? She seems to be staying quiet right now with the heavy charges against her. Good thing that she's staying out of trouble, though, at least. Chris, who knows? It depends if they want to keep McMahon in place. Whatever happened to the Buff Bagwell channel? I didn't even know he had a channel. I know someone posted he did a rant against me on whatever channel he had, or I'm guessing it was on his channel, and I looked at it and it had like 80 hits. So it wasn't that successful, so he may have just given up on it. Any word from BW? Don't know who that is. I've never heard of a wrestling company having medical insurance for their wrestlers. WWE will take care of medical problems for their wrestlers while they're under contract, though. And I assume AEW as well. Independence, no. All the kids are going to start doing power slaps at school. I don't think it's a good thing for kids to emulate or for kids to want to do. This is not us evolving. Okay, I'm sorry, and I am a combat sports reporter, but I'm not a fan of a power slap. I think this is stupid, and yeah, Dana White likes to make money off of people getting brain injuries, so I don't think he cares. But yeah, I don't think it's good for the human species to have stuff like power slap around. Joseph says Bloodline are bad actors but good athletes. John says Sammy couldn't wipe the blood off of Blood Hunter's mask. Well, for the Blood Hunter, he doesn't fit in the 2000. Even though he was the best heel, the most over heel of 2021, by far, he had the most heat of anyone, made worldwide news, and was Texas champion as well as Great North Wrestling champion in that year. He's not the wrestler of today's non-kayfabe era, spot fest era, flippity wrestling era. Although he did do some high flying stuff, but it's best that Blood Hunter remains in parts unknown, because it's just going to cause. He's too controversial and too realistic for today's era. And I fully agree with that, so it's best that he remains retired. DK says it's fun to see these wrestling podcasters go apeshit over the Vince news. They keep trying to convince themselves Triple H is better. Like, the booking of Raw has been shit. And, like, let's look at the Royal Rumble main events. Roman Reigns against Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt against LA Knight. If you guys think that's great, good for you. But the bottom line is, I haven't seen the product. I've seen Triple H bring back a bunch of NXT guys and act like it's some big deal, bringing back these guys like that money guy that did the stupid flip thing outside of the ring on SmackDown a few weeks ago, and everyone's still sold for the move as if he touched them, even though he came nowhere close to hitting them. I can't even remember. Top Dollar. He's brought back a lot of people like that no one gives a shit about. Oh, he signed Dragon Lee. Wow. Who really gives a shit, honestly, outside of the smart marks? Wallace believes Vince really wants to sell the WWE. Antonio stopped watching when he brought Karrion Kross back. Yeah, he did bring Karrion Kross back. I have nothing against Karrion Kross, other than he's not the greatest on the mic. Jeffrey doesn't like high-flying wrestlers. Well, we'll end it at that. I got to go to the gym. Have a great afternoon, everybody. I'll check in with you later if there's more news.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to